50 women, and he hadn't looked at a single one. Kai Sung stood in the grand ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan, champagne in hand, watching models glide past him like they were auditioning for his attention, their designer gowns catching the light from crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses, their practiced smiles sharp as knives, their eyes calculating the exact angle to catch his gaze, and he felt absolutely nothing. This charity gala was supposed to be about raising money for children's hospitals, but everyone knew the real reason Manhattan's elite showed up was to see and be seen, to make connections, to climb social ladders built on old money and older secrets, and for women like these to land men like him. Kai Sung, 28, heir to the Sung crime family that controlled everything from the shipping docks to half the real estate in New York, stood 6'2" in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo, his black hair styled perfectly, a small scar cutting through his left eyebrow from a fight he'd won at 16, tattoos hidden beneath expensive fabric, dark eyes that had seen too much violence to ever look truly soft, and a face that belonged on magazine covers except he avoided cameras like they were bullets. 50 models had walked past him tonight, and his business partner Eric kept count, kept nudging him, kept saying, "That one, definitely that one." And Kai kept sipping champagne and feeling like he was watching a performance where everyone knew their lines except him. The models were beautiful, objectively stunning, the kind of women who launched fashion campaigns and married billionaires and smiled like they'd been taught in classes specifically designed to make men stupid. But Kai had grown up surrounded by beautiful things that wanted to destroy him, and he'd learned early that pretty faces often hid the ugliest intentions. His father had taught him that, right before his father had tried to sell him in a marriage alliance to a rival family's daughter. Right before Kai had taken over the family business at 23 and told his father that some traditions deserved to die. So he stood there, bored out of his mind, planning his exit strategy, when the music shifted to something slower and the crowd parted near the bar, and that's when he saw her. She wasn't a guest, wasn't wearing a gown, wasn't trying to catch anyone's attention at all, just a waitress in the standard black and white uniform the Waldorf required, carrying a tray of champagne flutes through the crowd with the kind of grace that came from practice, not performance, her dark skin glowing under the chandelier light, her natural hair pulled back in an elegant low bun, her expression professionally neutral as she navigated the space between bodies and egos. Kai's eyes tracked her automatically, the way they tracked anything that moved differently from the expected pattern, and he told himself it was tactical awareness, the same instinct that had kept him alive in a world where people died for showing weakness. She delivered drinks to a group near the orchestra, smiled at something someone said, and that smile hit Kai like a punch to the chest. It wasn't performed, wasn't calculated, wasn't trying to seduce or manipulate or gain anything. Just genuine warmth spreading across her face for 3 seconds before it disappeared back into professional neutrality, and Kai forgot how to breathe. He'd stopped moving, champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips, every muscle in his body locked on that moment, on that smile, on the way it had transformed her entire face from pretty to absolutely devastating. And Eric was saying something beside him, but Kai couldn't hear it over the sudden rushing in his ears. The waitress turned, started walking back toward the service entrance, and Kai's feet moved before his brain caught up, cutting through the crowd with the kind of purposeful stride that made people instinctively step aside. But she disappeared through a staff door before he could reach her, and he stood there in the middle of the ballroom like an idiot, staring at where she'd been. "Did you just—" Eric appeared at his elbow, eyes wide. "Did you just chase a waitress across the room?" "I didn't chase anyone," Kai said, but his voice sounded wrong even to himself. "You walked past 50 supermodels," Eric said slowly, ignored every single one, and then sprinted after service staff. "Are you having a stroke? Should I call a doctor?" Kai couldn't explain it, couldn't put into words what had just happened, how that smile had cracked something open in his chest that he'd thought was permanently sealed, how for 3 seconds he'd seen something real in a room full of beautiful lies, how he suddenly needed to know her name more than he needed his next breath. "Find out who she is," Kai said quietly, and Eric knew that tone, knew it meant this wasn't a request. "The waitress?" "Kai, You can't be serious. Find her. Kai interrupted, his eyes still fixed on that staff door. Name, address, everything. I want to know by morning. Eric stared at him like he'd grown a second head, but nodded and pulled out his phone. Already texting someone. Already making it happen, because when Kai Sung wanted something, the universe bent to make it possible. Kai turned back to the gala, to the 50 models still circulating, still performing, still trying to catch his attention, and felt nothing but impatience to leave, to find the woman who'd smiled like sunshine and disappeared like smoke. He had no idea that woman was about to turn his carefully controlled world completely upside down. But he was about to find out. Her name was Naomi Clark, and she had exactly 4 hours left on her shift before she could go home. Take off these heels that were murdering her feet, and collapse into bed in her tiny Brooklyn apartment that she shared with 2 roommates and a cat named Dragon, who hated everyone equally. The Waldorf gig was supposed to be good money, 25 an hour plus tips for serving champagne to people who spent more on a single piece of jewelry than Naomi made in a year, but her feet disagreed violently with that assessment, and she was pretty sure one of the guests had just tried to slip his business card into her apron pocket along with a wink that made her skin crawl. She'd smiled politely, removed the card without looking at it, and dropped it in the nearest trash can, because Naomi Clark had 3 rules for surviving these high society events. Smile like you mean it, don't make eye contact longer than necessary, and never ever accept anything from guests who looked at you like you were part of the menu. The ballroom was packed with Manhattan's elite doing what Manhattan's elite did best, which was pretending to care about charity while really just networking and showing off. And Naomi wove through them with practiced ease, her tray balanced perfectly, her smile ready, her mind already planning tomorrow's schedule. She had a morning shift at the cafe in Brooklyn, an afternoon audition for a commercial that would probably go to someone with more connections, and an evening class for her business degree that she was taking 1 course at a time, because that's all she could afford, and somewhere in there she needed to sleep and eat and remember what it felt like to not be constantly exhausted. Excuse me, miss? An older woman in diamonds that could probably fund a small country gestured imperiously, and Naomi moved toward her with her professional smile firmly in place, delivered champagne, accepted no thank you in return, and moved on, because invisible was safest, and Naomi had learned that lesson the hard way. She'd grown up in California, small town, big dreams, the kind of girl who believed that if you worked hard enough and wanted it badly enough, you could make anything happen. And then she'd moved to New York at 21 and discovered that the city didn't care about your dreams, only your ability to pay rent and survive. 5 years later, at 26, Naomi was still fighting, still working 3 jobs, still showing up to auditions even though she hadn't booked anything significant in months, still believing that eventually something would break her way. But some days like today when her feet hurt and entitled rich people treated her like furniture, she wondered if she was chasing something that didn't exist. The orchestra started a new song, something classical and sweeping, and Naomi caught sight of herself in one of the massive gilded mirrors lining the wall, saw the exhaustion she was hiding behind her smile, and made herself stand straighter, lift her chin, because giving up wasn't in her DNA, and no matter how hard things got. She delivered her last round of champagne and headed back toward the service entrance for a refill, and that's when she felt it, that prickling awareness of being watched, the kind that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Naomi glanced over her shoulder and saw him, tall and devastatingly handsome in a way that should be illegal. Dark eyes locked on her with an intensity that stole her breath, standing in the middle of the ballroom like he'd forgotten where he was. And for just a second their eyes met across the distance, and something electric passed between them. Then Naomi blinked, shook it off, and pushed through the staff door into the bright fluorescent reality of the service corridor, because men who looked like that and stood in ballrooms like this didn't notice women like her except as objects to use and discard, and she'd already had enough of that for one lifetime. "Girl, you okay?" her coworker Jamie asked, loading her own tray. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Just tired," Naomi lied, but her heart was still racing, still caught on the way that man had looked at her, like she was the only person in a room full of hundreds. 20 more minutes, and we can take a break, Jamie said sympathetically. Rich people tip better when they're drunk, so smile pretty, and let's make this rent money. Naomi laughed, grabbed her refilled tray, and pushed back through the door into the ballroom, and the man was gone, disappeared into the crowd, and she told herself the weird flutter in her chest was relief, not disappointment. The rest of her shift passed in a blur of champagne and fake smiles and aching feet, and by the time Naomi finally made it home at 2 in the morning, she'd almost forgotten about the man with the intense eyes. Almost. But when she fell asleep, she dreamed of the way he'd looked at her, and woke up more confused than ever. What Naomi didn't know was that across the city, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Kai Sung was staring at a file that contained her entire life, name, address, work history, everything, and he was already planning how to see her again. The universe was about to collide their worlds, and neither of them was ready for what came next. Naomi's morning shift at the Brooklyn Cafe started at 6 a.m., which meant she was running on 4 hours of sleep and pure caffeine when the door chimed and he walked in. Kai Sung, even more devastating in dark jeans and a leather jacket than he'd been in a tuxedo, looking completely out of place in the tiny neighborhood cafe where regulars came for cheap coffee and cheaper breakfast sandwiches, his dark eyes scanning the room until they landed on her behind the counter, and Naomi almost dropped the espresso she was making. "What can I get you?" she asked, keeping her voice professional even though her heart was trying to escape her chest, because this couldn't be coincidence, couldn't be random. This man from the Waldorf showing up at her cafe in Brooklyn at 6 in the morning. "Coffee," Kai said, and his voice was deeper than she'd expected, rough like he hadn't slept either, tinged with an accent that suggested Korean heritage. "Black, no sugar." Naomi rang him up, made his coffee, and slid it across the counter, and when their fingers brushed during the exchange, she felt electricity shoot up her arm. "You were at the Waldorf last night," Kai said, not a question. "I work events sometimes," Naomi said carefully, because alarm bells were ringing in her head, because normal people didn't track down waitresses to random cafes unless they wanted something. "Did I forget to give you your champagne or something?" "No," Kai said, and something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "I wanted to see you again." The honesty of it startled her. "Why?" "Because you smiled," Kai said simply, and it was the most real thing I'd seen in months. Naomi's breath caught, because that was either the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to her or the most effective line she'd ever heard, and she couldn't tell which. "I smile at everyone," she said. "It's part of the job." "Not like that," Kai said. "Not like you meant it." Before Naomi could respond, her manager called her name, needing help with the morning rush, and she had to turn away, had to focus on orders and customers, and not the man who'd somehow found her cafe and was saying things that made her chest ache. But when she looked back, Kai was still there, sitting at a corner table, coffee untouched, just watching her work with that same intense focus from the gala, and Naomi didn't know whether to be flattered or terrified. Her shift ended at noon, and Naomi changed out of her apron expecting him to be gone, but Kai was waiting outside, leaning against a black Mercedes that probably cost more than her student loans. "This is creepy," Naomi said bluntly, even though her traitorous heart was doing backflips. "You showing up at my work, waiting for me, it's stalker behavior." "You're right," Kai agreed immediately. "I'm sorry. I couldn't stop thinking about you, and I don't know what I wanted. To see if that moment at the gala was real or if I'd imagined it." "What moment?" Naomi asked. "The one where time stopped," Kai said quietly, and there was something so vulnerable in his expression that Naomi's defenses cracked just a little. "I walked past 50 women last night and didn't see any of them. Then you smiled, and I forgot my own name." "That's a line," Naomi said, but she was smiling despite herself. "It's the truth," Kai said. "Have lunch with me. Just lunch. 1 hour. If you hate it, I'll leave you alone forever." Naomi knew she should say no, should walk away, should not get involved with mysterious rich men who tracked her down, but there was something in his eyes that looked almost desperate, almost lonely, and she'd always been a sucker for strays. 1 hour, she heard herself say. "And you're buying." Kai's smile was beautiful and relieved, and Naomi realized she was in so much trouble. Lunch turned into 3 hours at a tiny Thai place in her neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing, and Naomi discovered that beneath the expensive clothes and intense exterior, Kai was funny and self-deprecating and carried sadness in his eyes that he tried to hide behind charm. He told her about growing up between two cultures, never quite fitting in either, about pressure from family, about feeling like his life was mapped out before he was old enough to have opinions. Naomi told him about California, about dreams of acting that were slowly being ground down by reality, about working 3 jobs and still barely surviving, about refusing to give up even when giving up would be easier. "You're extraordinary," Kai said when they finally left the restaurant, and he said it like he meant it, like he wasn't just trying to get something from her. "I'm exhausted," Naomi corrected, but she was smiling. "Can I see you again?" Kai asked. "Tomorrow? Tonight? Whenever you're free." "I have an audition tomorrow," Naomi said, "and a class tomorrow night, and another shift at the cafe on Wednesday morning." "What about Wednesday afternoon?" Kai asked immediately. Naomi laughed, started to say yes, then stopped, because this was moving too fast, because she didn't know anything about him really, because men like him didn't fall for women like her without an angle. "What do you do?" she asked suddenly. "For work." "You never said." Kai's expression shuddered. "Business. Import, export. Family company." "That's vague," Naomi observed. "It's complicated," Kai said, and there was something in his voice that sounded like warning. "Is it legal?" Naomi asked bluntly. Kai was quiet for a long moment. "Mostly." And there it was, the truth she'd suspected, the danger she'd sensed underneath all that charm. "I should go," Naomi said, taking a step back. "Naomi, wait. I don't date criminals," she said firmly, even though her heart was screaming at her to stay, to give him a chance, to see where this impossible thing could go. "I'm not. It's not what you think," Kai started. "Then what is it?" Naomi challenged. "Tell me the truth, right now, or I walk away and you never contact me again." Kai looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw him making a choice, saw him decide to risk everything. "My family runs one of the largest Korean crime organizations in New York," he said quietly. "I inherited it when I was 23. I'm trying to make it legitimate, to clean up what my father built. But that takes time, and in the meantime, yes, some of what we do operates in gray areas. I've done things I'm not proud of. I'll probably have to do more. But Naomi, I swear to you, I would never hurt you, never put you in danger, never." "Stop," Naomi interrupted, because her world was tilting, because this man she'd been falling for was apparently an actual crime boss, because this only happened in movies, not real life. "I need to think." "Take all the time you need," Kai said. "But know this, from the moment you smiled at me, something changed. I changed, and I'm not giving up on this unless you tell me to." Then he got in his expensive car and drove away, and Naomi stood on the Brooklyn sidewalk, trying to figure out if she'd just dodged a bullet or walked away from something extraordinary. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. For what it's worth, I walked past 50 perfect models and saw nothing. Then I saw you. That has to mean something. "Kay." Naomi stared at the message, at her shaking hands, at the choice stretching out in front of her. "Say yes and risk everything. Say no and always wonder what if." She typed back. "Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m. You pick the place, but it better not be anywhere dangerous or expensive. And you're going to tell me everything, Kai? Every truth, no matter how ugly." "Deal." His response came immediately. "Deal. Thank you for giving me a chance." Naomi didn't know if she was brave or stupid, but she knew she wasn't walking away from this. Not yet. Not when his smile haunted her dreams and his words made her believe in impossible things. Wednesday afternoon found Naomi standing in front of a community center in Queens, staring at the address Kai had sent, completely confused because this was not what she'd expected. The building was old but well-maintained, with kids streaming in and out, and through the windows she could see what looked like a martial arts class in session, and absolutely nothing about this screamed criminal empire. "You came," Kai's voice said behind her, and she turned to find him in workout clothes, hair slightly damp like he'd been exercising, looking more human and less untouchable than she'd ever seen him. "This is where you wanted to meet?" Naomi asked. "I volunteer here 3 times a week," Kai said. "Teaching Taekwondo to kids from the neighborhood. Keeps them off the streets, gives them discipline, community. I figured if you wanted to see the real me, you should see this part too." And just like that, Naomi's heart cracked open a little more. They sat on the steps outside while kids practiced inside, and Kai told her everything. About his father building an empire on violence and fear. About his older brother dying in a gang war when Kai was 20, leaving him to inherit a world he'd never wanted. About spending the last 5 years trying to transition the family business into legitimate operations, investing in real estate and tech startups and legal import companies, but still having to deal with the old guard who wanted to keep making money the bloody way. "I've killed people," Kai said quietly, not looking at her. "In self-defense, protecting my family, but still, I've done things that would make you run if you knew the details. I'm not a good man, Naomi. I'm trying to be better, but I'm not there yet." "Why are you telling me this?" Naomi asked, voice shaking. "Because you deserve the truth," Kai said. "And because I won't build something with you on lies. If you walk away, I'll understand. But I won't let you walk away without knowing exactly who I am." Naomi was quiet for a long time, watching kids laugh through the window, feeling the weight of Kai's confession settling over her. "My brother was killed in a gang shooting," she said finally. 5 years ago in Oakland. Wrong place, wrong time. He was just walking home from work and got caught in crossfire between 2 groups fighting over territory. He was 22. I was 21. It destroyed our family." Kai's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "I'm sorry. I swore I'd never have anything to do with that world," Naomi continued. "Never date anyone involved in violence. Never put myself in that position. Never risk loving someone who might not come home. So this, it's everything I promised myself I'd avoid." "I understand," Kai said, and she could hear him preparing to let her go, to accept her rejection with grace. "But," Naomi said, and watched hope flicker in his eyes, "you're not your father. You're trying to change things. You're teaching kids Taekwondo and transitioning to legitimate business and telling me the truth even though it might make me leave. That's not nothing, Kai." "It's not enough," Kai said. "Not to make up for what I've done." "Maybe not," Naomi agreed. "But it's a start. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we could start there. See where it goes. No promises, no expectations, just honest." "Honest," Kai repeated, and his smile was so full of relief it made her chest ache. They spent the afternoon together, Naomi watching Kai teach, seeing how the kids responded to him with respect and affection, how he was firm but kind, how he made them feel capable and strong. And she saw a version of him that had nothing to do with crime families and everything to do with who he wanted to be. "You're good at this," Naomi said as they walked to the subway later. "You should do more of it." "I want to," Kai admitted. "I want to open centers all over the city, give kids alternatives, create programs. But my father thinks it's a waste of resources. Says I should focus on the family business, on maintaining power." "What do you think?" Naomi asked. "I think power is worthless if you're not using it to make things better," Kai said. "I think my father built an empire but lost his soul doing it, and I don't want to make the same mistake." They reached the subway entrance, and Kai caught her hand. "Can I take you to dinner? Somewhere nice. Let me show you that I can do normal dates, not just confessing my crimes on community center steps." Naomi laughed. "Okay, but nowhere too fancy. I don't own ball gowns." "You're perfect exactly as you are," Kai said, and kissed her hand like she was something precious. That night, at a rooftop restaurant overlooking Manhattan, Naomi felt like she was living someone else's life. The city sparkled below them. Kai looked at her like she hung the stars, and for the first time in 5 years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, something good could happen. "I'm scared," she admitted over dessert. "Of this. Of you. Of how fast I'm falling." "I'm terrified," Kai said honestly. "Because I've never felt like this before. Because you make me want to be better than I am. Because I'm pretty sure I was walking through my life half dead until you smiled at me." "That's a lot of pressure for one smile," Naomi said, But she was smiling now, that real genuine smile that had started all of this. Then keep smiling, Kai said, and I'll keep trying to deserve it. But across the city, in a smoke-filled office, Kai's father was looking at surveillance photos of his son with a waitress, and his expression was cold enough to freeze blood. End it, he told his second-in-command. I don't care how. Make the girl disappear. My son has responsibilities that matter more than his feelings. The order was given. The trap was set. And neither Kai nor Naomi had any idea that their happiness had an expiration date. Naomi knew something was wrong when her roommate Maya opened the apartment door with tears streaming down her face. They came looking for you, Maya whispered. 2 hours ago. Big guys, expensive suits, said they had a message from Kai's father. Naomi's blood turned to ice. What message? That you need to stop seeing Kai or there will be consequences, Maya said. Naomi, they knew everything. Where you work, where you go to school, your mom's address in California. They said accidents happen to people who don't listen. Naomi sank onto the couch, hands shaking, because this was it. This was the reality she'd been afraid of, the violence she'd sworn to avoid. I have to end it, she said. I have to tell Kai. They said if you tell Kai, it'll be worse, Maya interrupted. They said to just ghost him, disappear, that he'll get over it. That's not how this works, Naomi said, voice breaking. I can't just vanish without explanation. But even as she said it, she remembered her brother, remembered the funeral, remembered promising herself never again. She called Kai. He answered on the first ring. Your father's men came to my apartment, Naomi said without preamble. They threatened me, threatened my family. Kai, I can't do this. I can't live looking over my shoulder wondering if today's the day someone decides I'm too much of a distraction. Where are you? Kai's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. I'm coming to get you right now. You're not safe there. I'm not safe anywhere in your world, Naomi said, tears streaming down her face. Don't you see? This is exactly what I was afraid of. Your father will never accept me. He'll keep escalating until someone gets hurt. Then I'll deal with my father. Kai said. Naomi, please, just wait for me. No, Naomi interrupted. I'm sorry, Kai. I'm so sorry. But I can't do this. I can't risk my family, can't risk my life. Can't be the reason you go to war with your own father. This was beautiful, but it's over. Don't do this, Kai said, and his voice cracked. Don't let him win. He already won, Naomi whispered. The moment he threatened the people I love, he won. Goodbye, Kai. She hung up before he could respond, blocked his number before he could call back, and collapsed on her couch, sobbing while Maya held her. Across the city, Kai stared at his phone, at the blocked call screen, and felt something inside him shatter. Then he stood, grabbed his keys, and drove to his father's office with murder in his eyes. You threatened her, Kai said, slamming through his father's door without knocking, not caring that a meeting was in session, not caring about anything except the woman who'd just broken his heart to save her own life. You sent men to her apartment. His father dismissed the room with a wave, waited until they were alone, then looked at his son with cold eyes. I protected you from a distraction. She wasn't a distraction, Kai said, voice shaking with rage. She was everything. She was a waitress, his father said dismissively. A nobody who would have dragged you down, made you weak, compromised everything we've built. I don't care about what we've built, Kai shouted. I never wanted this empire, never asked to be your heir, never agreed to sacrifice my entire life for your legacy. Then you're a fool, his father said coldly. This empire is all we have. It's who we are, and I won't let you destroy it for some girl you've known for 2 weeks. I love her, Kai said, and saying it out loud made it more real, more devastating. I love her, and you took her from me. Then you'll learn to unlove her, his father said. Because she's gone, and if you try to contact her again, if you put her in danger by refusing to let go, I will make sure the consequences fall on her, not you. Stay away from the girl, Kai. It's the only way to keep her safe. The words hit Kai like bullets because they were true, because going after Naomi now would only paint a bigger target on her back. because loving her meant letting her go. He left his father's office feeling hollowed out, empty, and drove to the community center where he taught kids taekwondo, and stood in the empty practice room, trying to remember who he'd been before a smile had changed everything. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. I wish things were different. Be safe, Kai." She'd unblocked him long enough to send one message, one goodbye, and Kai felt tears he hadn't cried since his brother died tracked down his face. 3 months passed. Naomi threw herself into work, into auditions, into anything that would stop her from thinking about Kai, but every love song on the radio felt like an attack. Every couple she saw felt like a reminder of what she'd lost, and she couldn't walk past Thai restaurants without her chest aching. She finally booked a commercial, a small victory, but it felt empty without anyone to celebrate with, without Kai's proud smile and the way he'd called her extraordinary. Maya found her crying in the bathroom one night and just held her. "I did the right thing," Naomi said. "I know I did. So why does it feel like I'm dying?" "Because you loved him," Maya said gently. "And love doesn't care about right or wrong. It just cares about loss." Across the city, Kai was a ghost, going through the motions of running the empire but feeling nothing, teaching classes at the center but his smile never reaching his eyes, existing but not living. Eric tried to set him up with other women, and Kai couldn't even look at them, couldn't see anyone except the waitress who'd smiled and changed his entire world. "You have to move on," Eric said carefully. "She's not coming back." "I know," Kai said, but he didn't know how to move on when part of his soul had walked away with her. Then Kai's father had a heart attack. Massive, unexpected, and when Kai sat in the hospital waiting room at 4 in the morning, the only thing he could think was that life was too short, too fragile, too precious to waste on fear. His father survived, but the doctor was clear: retire or the next one would kill him. And just like that, the empire was fully Kai's. No more old guard to answer to. No more threats hanging over his head. No more father controlling every move. The first thing Kai did was call off every operation that wasn't completely legitimate. The second thing was to set up a foundation for at-risk youth, funding community centers across the city. The third thing was to try to find Naomi. But she'd moved, changed jobs, disappeared so completely it was like she'd never existed, and Kai spent 3 more months searching before accepting that maybe she didn't want to be found. He was teaching a class at the center 6 months after she'd walked away, when he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway. Naomi, thinner than before, exhaustion in her eyes, but that same strength in her spine, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. The world stopped spinning. Everything disappeared except her. And Kai knew that some things were worth fighting for, no matter how long it took. "Hi," Naomi said, voice barely above a whisper, and Kai dismissed the class early, didn't care about protocol or schedules, just needed to talk to her, needed to understand why she was here after 6 months of silence. They sat on the steps outside, the same place they'd sat when he'd told her the truth about his life, and the afternoon sun was gentle on their faces. "Your father had a heart attack," Naomi said. "I saw it in the news. Is he okay?" "He's alive," Kai said. "Retired. Moved to Connecticut to live with my aunt. Doctor's orders." "So you're in charge now," Naomi said. "Completely." "And the business?" she asked. "Legitimate," Kai said. "All of it. I spent the last 6 months cleaning house, ending contracts, transitioning everything. We're just a real estate and investment company now. No more gray areas." "That must have been hard," Naomi said softly. "It was necessary," Kai said. "I couldn't, after losing you. I realized that building something on fear and violence wasn't worth it. You showed me there was a better way." Silence fell between them, heavy with everything unsaid. "Why are you here?" Kai asked finally, because he couldn't take the not knowing, couldn't handle the hope rising in his chest that might get crushed. "Because I couldn't stop thinking about you," Naomi admitted. "Because I booked a national commercial, and the first person I wanted to call was you. Because I've been miserable for 6 months, and I kept telling myself I did the right thing, but it feels like I did the most wrong thing possible." "You did do the right thing," Kai said gently. "My father would have hurt you. You had to protect yourself." But he's gone now, Naomi said. And you've changed everything. And I read about your foundation, about the centers you're opening, about the scholarships for kids from low-income families. You're doing exactly what you said you wanted to do. Doesn't change the past, Kai said. Doesn't change what I've done. No, Naomi agreed. But it shows who you're trying to be. And I think I want to be part of that. If you'll have me. If I haven't completely destroyed everything by running away. Kai looked at her, really looked at her, and saw his future in her eyes. You called me extraordinary once, Naomi continued. But Kai, you're the extraordinary one. You walked past 50 perfect models and saw me. You told me the truth even when it could have cost you everything. You changed your entire life, cleaned up an empire, chose to be better. That's not nothing. It's not enough, Kai said. Not to deserve you. How about we decide together what's enough? Naomi suggested. How about we try this again, for real this time, with no threats hanging over us, no secrets between us, just us? Are you sure? Kai asked. Because Naomi, if we do this again, I'm not letting you go. I'm all in. Forever. No more walking away when things get hard. I'm sure, Naomi said. I've never been more sure of anything. I love you, Kai sung. I fought it, ran from it, tried to bury it, but I love you and I want to try. Kai pulled her into his arms and kissed her like he'd been dying without her, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning for 6 months. And Naomi kissed him back just as desperately, pouring every lonely night and every missed moment into it. I love you, Kai breathed against her lips. I've loved you since the moment you smiled. I'll love you until the day I die. That's very dramatic, Naomi said, laughing through tears. I'm a dramatic person, Kai admitted. Apparently walking past supermodels and chasing waitresses is my thing. They sat on those steps until sunset, talking about everything they'd missed, making plans for a future that finally felt possible. And when Kai finally drove Naomi home, he didn't want to let her go. Tomorrow, he asked. Tomorrow, she agreed. And the day after that. And the day after that. Forever, Kai asked. Forever, Naomi promised. 1 year later, Naomi stood in front of a mirror in a simple white dress, Maya adjusting her veil, and she thought about how strange life was, how one smile at a charity gala had led to this, to marrying a man who'd walked past 50 models and frozen when he saw her. You ready? Maya asked. So ready, Naomi said. The ceremony was small, just close friends and family at the community center where they'd fallen in love. And when Naomi walked down the makeshift aisle, Kai was crying, not even trying to hide it, looking at her like she was a miracle. You smiled at me, Kai said when she reached him, and my entire world changed. You froze, Naomi said, smiling that same smile, and I fell in love with a man who sees me. They said their vows, promised forever, kissed while their friends cheered, and when they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, the kids from Kai's taekwondo class threw flower petals and made ridiculous faces, and it was perfect, absolutely perfect. No regrets, Kai asked as they drove to the reception. Not a single one, Naomi said. You? Only that I didn't freeze sooner, Kai admitted. Could have had an extra week with you. We have the rest of our lives, Naomi reminded him. True, Kai said, pulling her close. And I'm going to spend every single day making sure you never stop smiling. At the reception, as they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Naomi looked up at this man who'd changed his entire world for her, who'd walked past perfection and chosen real, and felt her heart overflow. What are you thinking? Kai asked. That I'm glad I smiled, Naomi said. That I'm glad you froze. That I'm glad we collided. Me too, Kai whispered. Me too. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a ballroom very much like the one where they'd met, 50 models were being photographed and admired and pursued, and not a single one of them knew that the man who'd walked past them all had found something infinitely more precious than perfection. He'd found love. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful love. And it all started with a smile. If you loved Kai and Naomi's journey from a frozen moment to forever, smash that like button, subscribe for more emotional romance stories, and drop a comment telling me which moment destroyed you. The smile, the goodbye, or the reunion. And let me know what story you want next. Should we explore Eric's secret romance? Or dive into Maya's love story? You decide. Thanks for being here, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is smile at a stranger. You never know whose world you might change. See you in the next one.